Welcome back to the Motivated Mindset. This world we live in, it's a stage. And sometimes the performances people put on, they're so convincing we believe them, even when we shouldn't. People lie more than you think. And it's not just the strangers lurking in the shadows or the people you barely know. No, sometimes it's the ones closest to you, your friends, your partner, maybe even your family. And that's the toughest pill to swallow. We like to think we've got this innate ability to spot a lie. You know what I'm talking about. That sixth sense that whispers, something's off here. But the truth, most of the time we ignore those whispers. Why? Because trusting the people we care about feels safer than confronting the idea that they might be deceiving us. I've been there. Oh, I've been there. I thought I had this unshakable ability to read people. Thought I could judge character like it was my superpower. Then one day, someone I trusted, a person I thought would never look me in the eye and lie, did just that. And not just once. They lied for months, right to my face. Now, let's get one thing straight. The signs were there. They were as clear as day. Tiny shifts in behavior, exaggerated excuses, defensiveness that came out of nowhere. But I overlooked them. I chose to close my eyes because facing the truth would have meant confronting something I wasn't ready for. And that's the thing about lies. They thrive in the spaces where we're too afraid to dig deeper. The sooner you accept that people lie, the sooner you can strip away the illusions and start seeing through the facade. But fair warning, when you do, it might hit closer to home than you're ready for. Now, let's talk about some undeniable signs you're being lied to. Buckle up, because this ride might get uncomfortable. One quick change of subject. My testimonial, their eyes get big. Their face lights up, their mouth falls. Ever notice how some people have this uncanny ability to dodge your questions about something completely unrelated? You bring up something important, something you genuinely care about, and suddenly, boom, they're off on a tangent about something completely unrelated. You ever notice how some folks have this almost magical way of dodging your questions? It's like watching a pro athlete in a dodgeball game. Quick reflexes, smooth moves, and just like that, they're off on a tangent so far removed from the original topic that you're left wondering how you got there. It's not just avoidance, it's an art form. Let me set the scene for you. I was in a relationship once, and let me tell you, it was a masterclass in subject changing. Every time I brought up something serious, like where we were headed, how we'd navigate challenges, or even just a conversation about mutual goals, they'd pull a disappearing act on the topic. Where do you see us in a year? I'd ask. And before I could even finish the question, we were knee-deep in a discussion about dinner options, or worse, dissecting some random meme they'd seen on Instagram. Oh, at first I thought it was nerves. I told myself maybe they're just not ready to talk about this stuff yet. Give it time. But time didn't fix it. No matter how I approached it, no matter how patient I was, the pattern stayed the same. One day, it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just avoidance. It was refusal. A refusal to engage with reality. A refusal to take responsibility for what those conversations represented. And I realized I was part of the problem by letting them steer the ship every time the waters got choppy. I was enabling their behavior. Here's the hard truth. When someone is quick to change the subject, they're not just avoiding a topic, they're avoiding accountability. It's not about distraction or a short attention span. No, it's a deliberate move, a calculated strategy to keep you in the dark, to keep things light and easy for themselves. Think about it. Conversations about the future, about challenges, about anything that requires vulnerability, those are heavy. They demand honesty, effort, and sometimes a willingness to admit uncomfortable truths. For some people, that's too much. So instead of facing it, they dance around it. When someone habitually changes the subject, they're telling you something without saying it outright. They're showing you that they're not ready or willing to face the realities of your relationship, your friendship, or your business dealings. And here's the thing, life doesn't let you dodge the hard stuff forever. Eventually, those unanswered questions, those unspoken concerns, they come back around. They grow bigger, heavier, and harder to ignore. And by then, it's often too late to address them without major fallout. Avoiding tough conversations doesn't just stall progress, it erodes trust. When someone sidesteps the serious stuff, they're sending the message that your concerns don't matter, that your need for clarity, for direction, isn't as important as their comfort. And trust me, that's a dangerous dynamic, because a relationship, whether it's personal or professional, can't thrive without honesty and accountability. Here's the real kicker. Subject changers aren't just avoiding topics, they are avoiding responsibility. They don't want to deal with the implications of your questions. They don't want to commit to an answer, because an answer means accountability. It's easier for them to keep things light, to steer the conversation away from the hard stuff. But easier for them doesn't mean better for you. So, how do you deal with a master of subject changing? Here's the key. Don't let them off the hook. When they dodge your question, bring them back. And when they hold the answer, I hear you, but let's circle back to what I asked. It's funny you mentioned that, but I really need to understand what you think about this. Be firm but respectful. You're not being pushy. You're asking for the clarity and respect you deserve. Life's tough conversations aren't optional. They're the price of growth, of trust, of meaningful connection. When someone avoids those conversations, they're showing you their limitations. They're showing you what they value and what they don't. And if they consistently choose avoidance over honesty, then you've got a decision to make. Because at the end of the day, you deserve someone who's willing to face the hard stuff with you. 2, changes in voice, tone, and pitch. You ever notice how the truth carries a certain weight, a rhythm, a tone that rings clear? It doesn't stutter. It doesn't stumble. It's steady, like a heartbeat. But lies have their own music, a dissonance, a discord that you can hear if you listen closely enough. Yeah. Okay. No. Oh, I'm going to have flashbacks moment of that. Understand? All right. And I guess my son's understanding of what it means to be to you or me, it's subtle, yes, but powerful. Their tone might rise unexpectedly. Their pitch climbing, like they're trying to convince themselves as much as you. Or it might drop, quieter, softer, like they're hoping the words will slip by unnoticed. Now, think about that. A liar's voice often betrays them because they're carrying the weight of fabrication. It's not natural. It's not instinctive. Truth flows freely. Lies require effort. And that effort creates cracks. You might hear hesitation, like a pause that's just a little too long. Or maybe their words feel rushed, like they're racing to get past the lie before it falls apart. But here's the thing, it's not always obvious. Sometimes the changes in tone are barely perceptible, like a whisper of wind through the trees, a slight tremor, a faint waver, a note that doesn't quite match the melody of honesty. Yet, for those who pay attention, it speaks volumes. Why does this happen? Because lying creates tension. It's like juggling too many balls in the air, balancing what's real, what's fabricated, and how it all holds together. That tension creeps into their voice, shaping it in ways they can't fully control. So the next time you're listening to someone and their voice feels off, trust your instincts. It might just be the sound of the truth trying to break through the cracks of their deception. Stay sharp, stay aware, and don't ignore the subtle symphony of lie. 3, listen to understand, not to respond. Let me tell you something. This right here, it's a life-changing principle. In the fast-paced, noisy world we live in, everyone's talking, but barely anyone's listening. People think conversations are competitions, battles to outwit and outshine or outtalk each other. But you want to know the real secret? True power lies in your ability to listen, not just to hear words, but to understand the soul behind them. Most folks don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. They're not focused on what's being said, they're busy rehearsing their next line, waiting for their moment to shine. And let me tell you, when you're doing that, you're missing the whole point. Now, I'll be the first to admit I've been guilty of this. Back in the day, I thought being a great conversationalist meant having all the right answers, the perfect comeback, or the most insightful advice. I wanted to show I was paying attention by jumping in, by solving problems, by being the guy who always knew what to say. But then life has a way of teaching you things. I remember this one moment vividly. A conversation with a colleague who was going through a tough time. They didn't need a savior. They didn't need advice. They needed someone to hear them. So I made a choice. I stopped interjecting, stopped planning my response, and just listened. I mean, really listened. I wasn't thinking about how to fix their situation or what brilliant piece of wisdom I could drop. I gave them my full, undivided attention. You know what happened? They opened up. It was like a dam breaking. By the end of that conversation, they said something I'll never forget. I've never felt so heard before. And that moment, it shifted something in me. It wasn't the words I said, because I barely said any. It was the space I created for them to be seen and heard. That's when I realized sometimes the most powerful thing you can give someone isn't advice or answers, it's your presence. Listening is more than a skill. It's an act of respect. It's how you show someone that their words matter, that their feelings are valid, that they are important. When you truly listen, you're telling them, I see you, I hear you, you matter. And in a world where everyone's fighting to be heard, that's a gift. But here's the catch. You've got to listen without an agenda. No waiting for your turn to speak. No crafting the perfect response in your head. True listening is about surrendering your ego and giving your full attention to the other person. How to listen with purpose. Want to know how to do it? Let me break it down for you. 1, be present. Put down your phone. Turn away from distractions and focus entirely on the person in front of you. 2, ask questions, not to probe or pry, but to understand. Simple ones like, how does that make you feel? Or, what do you think you'll do next? 3, validate, don't fix. Most people don't need solutions, they need validation. Acknowledge their feelings. That sounds tough. Or, I can see why you'd feel that way. 4, embrace the silence. Don't rush to fill the gaps. Sometimes Silence gives the other person space to process their thoughts and go deeper. Here's the truth. Connection doesn't happen when you're waiting for your turn to talk. It happens in the quiet moments, in the pauses between words, in the unspoken understanding that says, I'm here for you. When you listen to understand, you're not just hearing someone, you're seeing them, honoring their story, and building a bridge between your heart and theirs. And that's where real connection lives. In today's world where social media and fast conversations dominate, the art of listening is more crucial than ever. Everyone's shouting into the void, trying to be heard, but few are offering the one thing that truly matters: genuine understanding. Imagine the impact you could have if you became the person who listens, not to reply, not to fix, but to simply be there. Imagine the relationships you could build, the trust you could foster, and the healing you could inspire. Let me leave you with this. Listening isn't just a tool for better communication. It's a legacy. It's how you leave people feeling valued and loved. When you listen to understand, you're giving them more than your time. You're giving them your heart. So the next time you're in a conversation, slow down, take a breath, and remind yourself this isn't about your response, it's about their story. It's about creating a space where they feel safe, heard, and understood. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, to be truly seen, truly heard, and truly understood. And when you master that, you're not just listening, you're changing lives. 4, defensive without cause. Let's break this down. Defensiveness. You've seen it, you felt it. That sudden, over-the-top reaction that doesn't match the question you just asked. It's like setting off fireworks when all you did was light a match. You asked something simple, maybe even innocent, and suddenly the person in front of you is launching into a monologue, acting like they're on trial for a crime they didn't commit. Did you take the last slice of pizza, you ask? And before you know it, you're getting a TED talk about their lifelong respect for sharing food and how offended they are that you'd even think such a thing. See, it's not the question that bothers them, it's the truth behind it. Let me share a story. I was part of a team project once, working on something that required everyone to pull their weight. Now, there was this guy, let's call him Mike. Every time I asked a simple question about his progress, like, hey, how's the report coming along? He'd snap back like I had accused him of treason. Why do you always think I'm slacking off? I'm working really hard, he'd say, with this defensive edge that practically screamed guilt. Mind you, this was the same guy who spent most of our meeting scrolling through his phone, laughing at memes while the rest of us were strategizing. And here's the punchline: when it came time to deliver, he had nothing. Nada. Not a single page of the report had been written. What was all that defensiveness about? It was a smokescreen, a way to deflect attention from the fact that he wasn't doing the work. Here's the deal: when people get overly defensive about harmless questions, it's rarely about you. It's about them. Honest people don't feel the need to turn a simple inquiry into a dramatic event. If they're on track, they'll tell you. If they're off track, they'll own up to it. But guilty people, they leave in a state of constant alert, ready to deflect and distract at a moment's notice. They know they're not meeting expectations, and instead of facing that truth, they create noise, emotional, loud, messy noise to keep you from seeing the cracks in their story. Now, let's dig a little deeper. Why do people get defensive without cause? It's about fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of losing control, fear of being held accountable for something they're trying to avoid. Think about it. If you're confident in what you're doing, a simple question won't shake you. It's like being asked, what's two, if you know the answer is 4, you say it with no hesitation. But if you don't know, or worse, if you know the answer is wrong, you're going to squirm. Defensiveness then becomes a shield, a way to keep you from asking too many questions, digging too deep, or uncovering the truth they don't want to admit. I've learned something over the years. Honest people don't fear questions. They welcome them. Why? Because they have nothing to hide. If you ask them how the report is coming along, they'll tell you straight up whether it's done, in progress, or behind schedule. They don't need to overreact because their confidence comes from the truth. But a guilty person, they'll build a wall of defensiveness so high you'll wonder if you did something wrong just by asking. That's their game, to make you question yourself instead of questioning them. How to spot the defensive deflector. So how do you know if someone's defensiveness is a red flag? Pay attention to these signs. Overreaction, their response is bigger than the question called for. Shifting blame instead of answering, they make it about you. Avoidance, they deflect, change the subject, or focus on irrelevant details. When you see these patterns, don't let them throw you off. Stay calm. Stay focused. And most importantly, don't let their noise distract you from the truth. Here's what I know defensiveness without cause is a signal. It's a saying that someone's hiding something, whether it's laziness, dishonesty, or just plain fear of accountability. And the more you ignore it, the more power you give them to continue their charade. So don't back down, ask your questions, stand your ground. And remember, you're not being difficult, you're being diligent. Because at the end of the day, honesty doesn't hide behind defensiveness. It stands firm, confident, and unshaken. Stay sharp. Stay true. And don't let anyone's overreaction keep you from the truth you deserve to see. 5. Over-polished details, the illusion of perfection. Have you ever listened to someone tell a story so perfectly crafted it feels like it belongs in a blockbuster movie? The timing is flawless, every detail meticulously placed, and the flow so smooth it feels rehearsed. Well, here's the reality, it probably is. I've encountered this time and time again. Take a guy I knew, let's call him Jake. Jake could spin a tale like Spielberg directs a movie. Once he described a business deal he supposedly closed, painting the scene with the kind of cinematic flair you'd expect from a James Bond film. There was a dramatic contract signing, the firm handshake, and a triumphant gaze out over the city skyline. If you closed your eyes, you could almost hear the orchestra swell. But here's the problem: real life isn't a script. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of raw edges. When a story sounds too smooth, your inner lie detector should be flashing red. Sure enough, when I dug into Jake's tales, I found half-truths and outright fabrications. Why do people over-polish their stories? Simple. They're trying to control the narrative, crafting a version of events that makes them look good. They become the director, writer, and star of their own production, while you're expected to sit in the audience and applaud. But here's the deeper truth: perfection doesn't exist. When someone's story is too tidy, it's often fiction masquerading as fact. Life's beauty lies in its chaos. Real stories, real success, and real relationships aren't about flawless narratives, they're about authenticity. The next time someone serves you a tale that's too good to be true, press pause. Ask questions. Dig deeper. Genuine stories can withstand scrutiny. The polished ones, they crumble under pressure. 6. The subtle truth of body language. Ever notice how someone's body speaks even when their words don't? Imagine this: you're deep in conversation, but the other person subtly turns their body away from you. They're talking sure, but their posture screams, "I'd rather not be here." This happened to me with a friend. Whenever our conversations veered into uncomfortable territory, his body would shift away. At first, I brushed it off as a quirk, but over time, it became clear his posture was doing the talking. Later, I found out he'd been hiding things. Nothing earth-shattering, but enough to chip away at trust. Body language is a powerful thing. Your words can lie, your body rarely does. A slight turn, avoiding direct eye contact, or crossing arms can all signal discomfort or avoidance. The truth is, when someone angles away mid-conversation, they're creating both a physical and emotional barrier. They may not even realize it, but their body is signaling, "I'm not ready to face this." If you notice this, don't ignore it. Address it. Ask the tough questions. Because when someone avoids being fully present, they're likely avoiding the truth too. 7. Laughing off serious topics, the evasion tactic. You're trying to have a heartfelt conversation and the other person laughs it off. Or you're overthinking it, they say with a chuckle. At first it seems harmless, maybe even charming, but when humor is consistently used to deflect serious conversations, it's not just annoying, it's a red flag. I've been there. In a relationship, I'd bring up something meaningful like feeling disconnected, and my concerns would be dismissed with a laugh. Over time, I realized humor wasn't lightening the mood, it was dodging the issue. Here's the thing: humor is a great tool, but it's also a shield. When someone laughs at serious matters, they're not just brushing you off, they're avoiding accountability. It's their escape route, their way of saying, "Let's not go there." This behavior exposes a deeper issue: emotional immaturity. Real conversations, the kind that build trust, aren't always comfortable. If someone consistently sidesteps them, they're not ready for the honesty that real relationships require. So what do? Call it out. Ask, "Why is this funny to you?" That question alone can crack the facade and reveal what's really going on. 8. Shades of vagueness, the fog of ambiguity. You ever ask someone a straight question and feel like you've stepped into a maze? You're looking for clarity, specifics, names, dates, details, and instead, you're served a plate of poetic nonsense, all fluff and no substance. It's like they've mastered the art of dancing around the truth, twirling in a fog of ambiguity, leaving you frustrated and, let's be honest, suspicious. Let me tell you, this isn't just a quirk of personality or a sign of being bad with details. No, vagueness is a weapon, a shield for those who've got something to hide. When someone can't give you straight answers, especially when you press them for specifics, chances are they're not just dodging the truth, they're outright lying. Let me give you an example. I once worked with a guy who loved to brag about these big deals he was closing. He made it sound like he was running the company single-handedly, pulling in major clients left and right. Naturally, we'd ask for details. What companies? How far along are the negotiations? His answers? always vague. Oh, we're in the early stages, he'd say, flashing a confident smile. Some really exciting conversations happening. Can't say too much, but it's huge. Weeks would go by and the story wouldn't change. Same vagueness, same fluff, same fog. Eventually, the truth came out. There were no deals, no big conversations, just a whole lot of bluffing. He was banking on us not pushing too hard, hoping his smoke and mirrors act would hold up. Here's the controversial part. Vagueness isn't just annoying, it's deceitful. It's a liar's best friend. Why? Because it lets him escape accountability. Think about it. Trying to pin down a vague person is like trying to catch smoke with your hands. You think you're getting somewhere, but they keep slipping away with half answers. And it's complicated excuses. Honest people, they don't need to hide behind vagueness. If they don't know something, they'll admit it. I'm not sure right now, or let me check on that, but a liar. They thrive in the gray areas. The more vague they can be, the harder it is for you to expose them. Here's the kicker: most of us let it slide. We've been trained to avoid confrontation, to not push too hard. We don't want to seem rude, overly demanding, so we accept the fluff and move on. But here's what I've learned: that awkward moment when you feel like you're prying too much. That's when you need to push harder. Because honesty can handle scrutiny. Vagueness, it crumbles under pressure. Let's be real for a second. We've all been vague at some point. Maybe you were caught off guard. Maybe you didn't know the answer. Or maybe you just didn't want to admit the truth. But here's the difference: honest people own up to it. They say, I don't know right now, or I'll get back to you. They don't weave a web of grand gestures and empty statements to cover their tracks. The problem arises when vagueness becomes a habit, a deliberate tactic to dodge the truth. That's when trust starts to erode. Trust is built on clarity and honesty. When someone dodges your questions, they're undermining that foundation. They're counting on your good nature, your willingness to let it slide. But here's the hard truth: if someone respects you, they'll give you clear answers. They'll value your trust enough to be straightforward. And if they can't, that's your red flag. Honesty isn't always convenient, but it's direct. It doesn't hide behind ambiguity or excuses. When someone refuses to give you specifics, it's because they're afraid of what the truth will reveal. Think about that for a second. They're building a wall of vagueness to keep you out. And if they can't tear down that wall when you ask, you've got to wonder, what are they hiding? It's not rude to ask for specifics. It's not needy. It's about protecting yourself, your relationships, and your time. So the next time someone gives you a vague answer, don't let them off the hook. Look them in the eye and say, I need clarity, and if they respect you, they'll give it to you. 9. Inconsistencies. Let me tell you something. The truth doesn't waver. It doesn't stutter. It doesn't need to catch its breath or pause to get its story straight. But a lie. A lie has to work overtime to hold itself together. And no matter how smooth someone thinks they are, no matter how much they practice or rehearse, inconsistencies are the cracks that always give them away. Here's the thing about liars: they struggle under the weight of their own deception. Keeping a lie intact is like trying to carry water in a basket. It slips through, drips out, and eventually the whole thing falls apart. Pay attention to their words, their actions, and the details they share. That's where you'll find the truth hiding, waiting to be uncovered. You've seen it before. You ask someone a simple question, and their answer is a little ... off, it doesn't add up. Maybe they hesitate. Maybe they double back. Or maybe they say one thing today and another tomorrow. When you confront them with new information or ask follow-up questions, watch closely. If they're honest, their story will stay the same because the truth doesn't need adjustments. But a liar, they'll scramble. They'll shift their narrative to fit the moment, hoping you won't notice the gaps. Here's an example. Imagine someone tells you they were at a meeting all afternoon. You nod, but later someone else mentions seeing them at a coffee shop during that same time. So you bring it up casually. Hey, I heard you were at the coffee shop earlier. Thought you had a meeting. If they're lying, this is where the cracks start to show. Suddenly their story has layers. Oh, right. I stopped by the coffee shop before the meeting just for a minute, but then you dig deeper. What time was that? They stammer, their eyes shift, and their confidence fades. They're spinning plates now, trying to keep their lie alive, while lies crumble under pressure. Let me tell you why inconsistencies happen. When you tell the truth, you're just sharing what happened. It's natural, fluid, and real. But when you lie, you're constructing a story of fragile, man-made structure. And every time you add to it, every time someone asks a question or challenges you, you're forced to tweak the design. It's exhausting. It's unsustainable. And eventually the cracks become too big to ignore. Here's what I've learned. Liars don't fear the question, they fear the follow-up. That's where the power is in the details. So listen carefully. Don't just hear their words, study them. Watch how their story evolves under pressure. Are they consistent? Or do their answers shift depending on who's asking or what they think you know? The moment you spot a change, you found the thread. And when you pull on that thread, the entire tapestry of their deception starts to unravel. Liars aren't always blatant. Some are masters of subtlety, weaving their lies with just enough truth to make them believable. But here's the catch: the more elaborate the lie, the harder it is to keep it straight. So look for the small discrepancies. Did their timeline shift? Did they add a new detail that doesn't match up with the original story? Did they suddenly remember something when you pressed them? These are the signs that their facade is cracking. Now, I'm not saying you need to interrogate everyone in your life. But when something doesn't sit right, don't ignore it. Ask questions. Pay attention to how they respond. And don't be afraid to press for specifics. Here's the thing: honest people don't crumble under scrutiny. They welcome it because they have nothing to hide. But a liar, they'll fumble, they'll falter, and they'll reveal themselves in the inconsistencies. At its core, this isn't just about catching someone in a lie. It's about protecting your own integrity and the trust you build in your relationships. Truth is the foundation of everything real, whether it's a friendship, a partnership, or a promise. Inconsistencies are the warning signs or red flags that tell you something isn't right. Don't ignore them. Don't excuse them. Because when someone's words don't match their actions, when their story shifts, like saying, they're showing you who they are. And it's up to you to decide if that's someone you can trust. So pay attention, stay sharp. And remember this: the truth doesn't need to be fixed or patched up. It stands tall, solid, and unwavering. Lies, they're fragile. They crack under pressure. And if you look closely, you'll always find the truth shining through the gaps. Life isn't perfect, and it's not supposed to be. The truth is raw, messy, and sometimes uncomfortable, but that's what makes it real. Whether it's over-polished details, evasive body language, or humor used as a shield, people who avoid the messy parts of life aren't being honest with you or themselves. Don't settle for the illusion of perfection. Look for the cracks, the raw edges, and the imperfections. That's where the truth lives. And trust me, the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always worth it. Lying isn't always about spoken words. Sometimes it's in the things left unsaid, the shifts in behavior, the dodged conversations, the overreactions. These subtle lies are the ones that chip away at trust, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. So what's the takeaway? Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let people off the hook when they try to steer the conversation away from the truth. It's not about being confrontational, it's about setting a standard for honesty. At the end of the day, real relationships, whether they're with a partner, a friend, or a colleague, are built on truth. And truth, no matter how hard it is to face, is always stronger than a carefully constructed lie. This is your moment to step up, to stop letting lies slide, to demand honesty, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of respect for yourself and the relationships you're building. Because when the foundation is truth, there's nothing you can't withstand.